From eating disgusting things to giving away gobs of money, there's seemingly no limit to what people will do to grab our attention. But YouTube and TikTok didn't invent humanity's desperate desire for fame. They just gave it a new platform. History is littered with stories about thrill-seeking, adventurous, even dangerously misguided individuals who are willing to do whatever it takes to make a name for themselves. So, today, we're looking back at the strange but true story of Mike Meaney, the Irishman who buried himself alive for 61 days. But before we go deeper, make sure you've subscribed to the Weird History channel. After that, drop down into Ye Old Comments section and let us know what other strange world records you would like to hear about. All right, Irish, let's start fighting. Did you know that the Guinness World Records are named after the same Arthur Guinness that brewed that molasses-thick black Irish stout? In the early 1950s, the unfortunately named Sir Hugh Beaver, then the managing director of Ireland's Guinness Breweries, was on a hunting trip and got into an argument with his buddies over the fastest game bird in Europe, as one does. The correct answer, as it turns out, was the golden plover, which, duh. The whole situation gave Sir Beaver an idea for a simple reference book with quick answers to just these kind of questions and discussions. When an employee connected him with Norris and Ross McWhirter, two London fact-finders, who were already working on their own version of a similar tome, the Guinness Book of World Records was born. In an age before everyone had entertainment in their pocket, the book became a surprise hit, and attempts to set and break these records became a popular pastime. For example, college students around the world became fixated on the idea of phone booth stuffing, where you'd see how many individuals could cram inside the same phone booth at once. Somebody invent video games already. If you've ever wondered why Harvey Danger named that 190 song Flagpole Sitta, you know, the one about not being sick but not being well, it's a reference to a weird trend from this same era. A flagpole sitter would test their endurance by seeing how long they could remain positioned on top of a tall pole in a public setting. Though former sailor and stuntman Alvin Shipwreck Kelly was an early pioneer of flagpole sitting in the 1920s, his record was topped in 1963 by Alabama 17-year-old Peggy Townsend, who spent a buck-wild 217 days on top of a flagpole for a radio contest. But while some 60s daredevils and stunt performers were looking up to the tops of the flagpoles, others had their eyes fixed solidly on the ground. In the 1930s, a guy named Herbert Odell Smith took on the name Digger Odell and focused his efforts on remaining underground for long periods of time. In September of 1961, as a promotion for Bluff City Buick in Memphis, Tennessee, Odell moved into what he called the world's smallest apartment, a coffin-sized hole beneath the dealership's parking lot. Though the hole had no real room in which to move around, it did come with a 60-gallon chemical toilet and a periscope that allowed Odell to peer out into the world. And in New York City, that would cost $9,000 a month. The Buick dealership promoted this stunt with a huge banner reading, "How long can he stay buried alive?" Odell planned to remain in the hole for 57 days, setting what would have then been a world record. But Memphis police showed up to arrest him for a wholly unrelated non-payment of child support after just 13 days. It's like they don't even respect real athleticism. Fort Worth, Texas resident Charles William Bill White was another burial stunt performer who went by the Rob Zombie-esque nickname, the Living Corpse. He preferred to lie flat in a plywood coffin while keeping in touch with the outside world via microphone and telephone. The lid of his coffin also had a viewing window, and he was fed fresh oxygen through a vertical shaft in the ground. In February 1966, White was buried beneath the Fort Worth country music venue, Panther Hall, when he started getting frequent visits from a local woman named Lottie Howard. The two fell in love while White was underground. Eventually, he proposed marriage over the coffin phone and cut his stunt short after just 24 days, so he could emerge and get married. Ah, romance. Which at last brings us to Michael Mick Meaney, an Irish laborer in his mid-30s who had always dreamed of stardom. Meaney started out as a boxer of some promise, but a hand injury brought his career in the ring to an early end. In 1968, recognizing that he had the physical stamina and strength to compete in the growing buried alive trend, Meaney joined forces with former circus strongman Michael Butty Sugru, who owned the Admiral Lord Nelson pub in Kilburn, England. A lot of great names in this story. Sugrue was already a local legend, and his years as an entrepreneur had also gifted him with a knack for organizing attention-grabbing stunts. So the two planned on burying Meaney underneath a pub for any spectator to see. Meaney's pub spectacle actually coincided with another stunt being organized by Bill White back in the U.S. The two men were aiming to top the current world record for being buried alive, and the media seized upon the coincidental timing and played up the rivalry. The BBC even broadcast a joint interview with both men. On February 21, 1968, after a live wake was held for Meaney in the pub, he was lowered somewhere between 8 and 11 feet into the ground and covered in dirt. Two pipes were left clear and exposed, intended to provide Meaney with air and food. In total, Meaney's coffin measured around 6 feet 3 inches long and 2 feet 6 inches wide, with a height of around 2 feet. While a lot of burial showmen opted for suits and ties, Meaney wore a pair of blue pajamas, along with a crucifix for luck. Function over form. Why not? For entertainment, Meaney brought down a little light reading with him, and for added comfort, the coffin was lined with foam. A bit of lime was also placed around the air hole, in an effort to reduce some of the inevitably bad smells that were sure to emerge from a small box with a guy living in it. Speaking of smells, there was apparently also a small hole or hatch through which Meaney could go to the bathroom, though how this functioned was never adequately explained to the press. Some secrets you just have to take to the grave. Meaney's days underground soon settled into something of a routine. He would wake up and do limited exercise to prevent muscle atrophy, although we imagine it's tricky to get a good burn when you're locked in a pine box. Breakfast would be sent down the tube for him, and then he'd usually do some reading. At the time, Meaney said he was not particular, and was so bored he'd read anything sent down the hole to him, even the Financial Times. Occasionally, he would chat via telephone with spectators who came to the bar to see him. But unlike many other entrants in the buried alive marketplace of the 1960s, Meaney had not built up to his stunt with smaller spectacles. His training, as it was, largely consisted of smoking and eating steaks, which he believed would make him stronger ahead of his ordeal. This meant for Meaney that the big show was also something of a test run. This sometimes made the activities significantly more dangerous than they would be in a carefully planned and coordinated setting. At one point during Meaney's stunt, a truck arrived to pack some fresh dirt on top of his coffin and almost buried him alive for real, in a genuine, non-spectacle, very dead sort of way. In another ill-advised decision, he had not actually told his wife about his plans before announcing them to the world. Though Meaney told reporters that he was motivated to win the world title for the benefit of his family, his wife Alice, pregnant with their second child, only found out what he was planning after hearing about it on the radio. Although she may have just misunderstood what he meant when he said, "I'm going to the pub to get buried." Today, any legitimate world record attempt is expected to be monitored and recorded for posterity. But back in the 1950s and 60s, these stunts were much less formal. More like guys being dudes with the possibility of something historic happening. Sadly, this also meant that, despite his best efforts, Meaney never did secure an official world record for his time underground. And he probably earned it too. Meaney's American competitor Bill White emerged after 55 days, while Meaney outlasted him by nearly a week, going for 61 days. In fact, Meaney claims he could have kept going longer, but Buddy Sugrue insisted he exit the hole, possibly because he wanted the floor of his pub back. But because no one from the Guinness organization had been invited to the pub to verify the stunt, Meaney was never awarded his world record. And when White pulled off his next stunt, remaining underground for 62 days and 22 hours, he was granted the Guinness record instead. Meaney did manage to cash in on his stunt, earning around $24,000 through a string of personal appearances in France. He later attempted to recapture some of the magic by challenging White to a joint burial under 15 feet of concrete, but it seems unlikely this second stunt was ever attempted. Despite these setbacks, living underground for 61 days made Meaney something of a local legend. Some conservative Irish Catholics had been offended by the stunt, viewing a guy burying himself alive as a purposeful communing with the devil. But many in the London Irish community embraced him as one of their own. And back in his hometown, his photo became a fixture in local pubs. Meaney passed away in February of 2003, for real this time. At his funeral, the priest noted that he'd never buried someone who had already been buried once before. So what do you think? What world records would you want to capture? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.